Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about why I don't like working salary jobs. Now, throughout my career, I've worked two salary jobs and I've also worked two hourly jobs. The job that I'm currently in is hourly. And what I've come to learn is that salary jobs often overwork you. And what I mean by this is, from my experience, when I've worked salary jobs, I've always had to put in more hours at those jobs and I was never compensated more for it. And growing up, I was always taught by people that were older than me that you want to chase after getting a salary job. And the reason you want to chase after this is because, let's say, if you're sick and you got to be out of work, you're still going to get the same take home pay. Now, that is the only benefit from my experience that I've seen from working salary. But again, most of my experience has been I've been overworking and not compensated extra for this. There's this weird kind of like unspoken thing that often happens within salary jobs, and you'll hear it sometimes from coworkers where, especially the ones that like to put in a lot of hours, where they say, you're never really off, right? Because your salary. And it's different than like when you work in hourly, because when you clock out, like you're done with the work. And what I found is that I've actually made less money working salary than I would have if I was working hourly. And the reason being is, most often at all the jobs that I've worked at, I'm putting in more than 40 hours. I'm working longer than 8-hour days. And if I was working hourly during those times, like I would benefit from, getting overtime pay, time and a half. But because I was working salary, I was only compensated for a standard 40-hour a work week. There's also this kind of like cultural thing that often happens within salary jobs where, it's almost a badge of honor to work, off the clock, right? Putting in 50 to 60 hours, but not get paid for it. So, you're often checking your Slack communications or your email communications when you're not at work. And if you were to actually break down how much work you're putting in per hour while working like a salary job, you'll realize that you're being compensated way less. Like if you're a salary position and you're really only paid for 40 hours, but you're working 50 to 60 hours, and say you're making like $80,000 a year, like you really need to break down based off the amount of hours that you're putting in, based off of the pay that you're getting, how much your hourly rate is. And you'll realize that you're actually making a lot less than what you could be if you're working, say, an hourly job and you're still putting in those hours, and you would qualify for time and a half overtime, depending upon the company that you work at and depending upon the state that you're at. So, for me in my wealth building journey and what I've been actually looking for when it comes to working at companies is I would prefer to work hourly and get paid for the amount of hours that I put in, because I'm the kind of person that, I'm probably going to work over 40 hours. And when I work over 40 hours, I want to be compensated for that. And I think when people are thinking about like a career that works for them, it could be more lucrative to go for careers or jobs that will pay you an hourly rate, right? Or, people that run small businesses or self employed, they know this, right? They know what it is when it comes to maybe being paid by the hour. And when you're paid by the hour, you're literally compensated for the amount of time that you're putting in. But when you work in salary, you're often not compensated for the time that you're putting in. And the cultures that you work with within those work environments often praise people that put in more hours or work around the clock, but you're really not taking home extra money. Now, if your salary is like ridiculous, right? I'm talking about high six figures, 300K, 400K, 500K. Like you're thinking about these jobs that are often salary, then yeah, it might make sense. But still, you would need to break down kind of like your hourly rate based off of how many hours you're putting in. I can see if that makes sense. But for a lot of people that are, just starting off their career, or you're making like low six figs, or under six figs, salary positions often are running you ragged. You're not getting compensated well for it. And there's probably better careers or jobs that offer an hourly rate where you'll be compensated more, especially if you're the type of person that wants to put in a lot of hours, you want to work extra. For me, like I'm not against putting in work. I'm not against sweat equity, right? Like I'm not trying to get away from doing a lot of work. But what I am trying to get to is, if I am going to put in a lot of hours, if I'm going to put in a lot of work, I want to be compensated for it. I want to make money every single hour I work. I don't want to be putting in extra hours and not being compensated for it. And it's very easy to fall into that trap when you're working salary. People will always say that, yo, hey, I work salary, but I get out of the office, once my 8 hours is up and I don't put in more than 40 hours. I would say for a lot of people, that's not the case, right? There's this unspoken expectation that you're going to be on call even when you're off. And I just don't like that. I mean, the benefit of getting paid even when I'm, like not at work and like I'm sick, just because I'm like, salary, that's not worth it for me. I mean, just find a job that offers good, paid time off or good like sick time off, and find one that's like hourly and you can still get paid even when you're not at work, which is the case for where I currently work right now. But I don't know. I think like this whole salary kind of idea often causes people, that especially ones that work hard, to get paid less, and they don't realize it. Like you don't understand it. Like you don't realize that like you're actually not making what you think you're making. If you're putting in, again, 50 to 60 hours a week, you're working salary, you're making 80 grand a year, right? Like you're really not like if you break down like your hourly rate, like you're actually not making like a lot of money in comparison to if you're working hourly. And I think a lot of companies understand this, right? I think, you know, companies that primarily have hourly jobs really focus on getting employees out on time and not paid overtime, because they don't want to pay people overtime for whatever their tasks are. So you'll see that people, like companies, are more strict and run things more lean and like really try to get you out when you're hourly. But when you're salary, they have no issue, no problem with you putting in hours on hours around the clock. But if you really want to build some wealth and you want to be able to have more money to put towards, your retirement, towards your debt pay down, towards savings, towards whatever goals you have financially, strongly consider hourly jobs, especially if you're thinking about just entering into the workforce. On LinkedIn, even in tech, I see there's a lot of jobs that offer hourly rates and their contract roles, and even for like project management, program managers. Um, I don't see it so much for kind of like engineer work, but there's different roles that are out there though that do exist where you can get paid an hourly rate and it can be really lucrative, and you can have more money take home, and then you're going to have a stronger work life balance. Because for me, working like hourly, I have a stronger work life balance because, again, my employer, at times, if they're not trying to offer like overtime, they're trying to make sure that you get there out on time and within a 40-hour kind of like work week, within an 80-hour pay period, so that they're not being hit with having to pay overtime for your work. Because again, most employers are not going to want to pay you overtime for the task that you're doing. So that's just kind of my thoughts and my experience on working, salary versus hourly. I'm more of a fan and a proponent at this stage in my career to work hourly. I would really look at hourly jobs if I had to, leave the company. If I was laid off, that's where I would first start, just to figure out what is the highest paid hourly job that I can take, because I see the benefit of the stronger work life balance, the ability to get overtime, the less likelihood that I'm going to be underpaid from the standpoint of putting in more hours and not earning money for those extra hours that you're put in. And I think that, hourly jobs are really slept on, and a lot of people mistakenly chase for salary positions and they don't realize that they're underpaid. So that's all my thoughts for today's video. If you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe. I'm going to continue to be just dropping daily videos, just reflecting on, my personal experience navigating through personal finances, career, things like that. And I'm trying to build a strong community of people that are like-minded and all in pursuit of the same thing. So hope you enjoy the video. Have a good day. Take care.